Hey Lions fans, I have some breaking news that we need to talk about. Now, I know we're all excited for the upcoming season, especially with all the hype surrounding our team, but we've hit some serious bumps in the road, particularly with our backup offensive line. This is something that could have a ripple effect as we move forward, and I want to hear your thoughts on it. Before we go any further, make sure you've hit the like button if you've been a Detroit Lions fan for 18 plus years. Thanks for your loyalty, one pride. Let's start with the latest. According to a report from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, our guy, offensive tackle Connor Galvin, suffered a torn MCL during Thursday night's preseason opener against the New York Giants. And folks, this one hurts. It's not just a minor setback, Galvin is going to need season-ending surgery. Now, this happened in the second half of the game when Galvin was rolled up on during a play. You could see the pain on his face, and it was clear it wasn't good when he couldn't put any weight on his leg and had to be carted off the field. This is the second major hit our backup offensive linemen have taken this season. If you remember, just a short while ago, we lost Netane Muti to a season-ending shoulder injury during training camp. Muti's been a solid player, and losing him was already a blow. Now, with Galvin out, our depth on the offensive line is really starting to thin out. And it doesn't stop there. We've got rookie Christian Mahogany, who's still on the non-football illness list, and Kevin Zeitler, who's missed some time as well. Ko Iwasaka has thankfully returned after missing a couple of practices, but we're still not out of the woods. Galvin was in the mix, competing for one of those critical backup offensive tackle spots, going head-to-head with Colby Sorstel and Dan Skipper. Now, we're going to have to see who steps up in his absence. But here's the kicker, Galvin wasn't the only player to go down in that game. Coach Dan Campbell, who's always up front with us, shared that defensive tackle David Bada might be facing a long-term Achilles injury. And then there's quarterback Hendon Hooker and wide receiver Antoine Green, who both suffered concussions. On top of that, edge defender James Houston is dealing with a bone bruise in his knee, safety Morris Norris has a hamstring issue, and defensive end Nate Lynn has a shoulder injury. He was apparently carted off, too. Now, Campbell has been pretty clear that Bada and Galvin's injuries are the ones we should be most concerned about in the long term. He did mention that it's tricky to predict recovery times for concussions, so we'll have to stay tuned for updates on Hooker and Green. As for what this means moving forward, the Lions are back at practice on Sunday, and you can bet we'll be keeping a close eye on how the team adjusts. This is where the depth of our roster is really going to be tested, especially on the offensive line. We've got to hope that the guys who are stepping up can hold the fort as we inch closer to the regular season. So, Lions fans, here's where I turn it over to you. How do you feel about the state of our offensive line after these injuries? Do you think we have the depth to overcome these losses? Or is this something that could derail our momentum? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, stay tuned. We've got a lot more to talk about as we get closer to kickoff. We got our first real taste of competitive Detroit Lions football on Thursday night. And let me tell you, it was an exciting one. I had my remote working overtime, rewinding and replaying as many key moments as I could from our defensive line's performance against the New York Giants. And wow, did that game give us plenty to talk about, especially when it comes to the battles brewing on our defensive front. Let's dive right into it, starting with our edge defender Isaac Ukwu. Number 45 came out of the gate blazing hot. Just the fact that he got the start is a testament to the trust the coaching staff is beginning to place in him. On the very first play, Ukwu made his presence felt, helping chase Giants quarterback Drew Lock out of the pocket. And on the Giants' second drive, Ukwu made a huge statement with a third down sack, keeping the pressure on Lock and showing the hustle that this coaching staff absolutely loves. He wasn't done yet either. He consistently forced Lock out of the pocket and held down the edge, making key tackles and disrupting plays. Coach Dan Campbell even singled him out in the post-game press conference, mentioning how Ukwu's been catching everyone's eye with his relentless pass rush ability. Lions fans, keep your eyes on this guy. He's making a serious case for himself as we move through the preseason. Now, let's talk about Broderick Martin. It was a bit surprising to see Chris Smith get the start at nose tackle over Martin, our 2023 third-round pick, especially with veteran Kyle Pico inactive. But Martin made sure to seize the opportunity when he got his snaps. Right from his first play on the third drive, Martin showcased his power by tossing the center aside and meeting the running back at the line of scrimmage. It was clear that when Martin was matched up one-on-one, he was a force to be reckoned with. He even swatted down a couple of passes at the line of scrimmage, including one right after a sack. The raw power and potential are there, and while Martin needs to work on consistency and technique, there's no doubt he's a player to watch as he continues to develop. James Houston also had some moments worth noting. He started the game in our 5-2 defensive front and saw quite a bit of action as the Sam linebacker. While he had a few missed tackles and run support, Houston also made some solid plays, including a nice open field tackle on Giants tight end Daniel Bellinger. Houston flashed his pass rush potential as well, with a couple of quick wins that forced the Giants to check down or make hurried throws. However, it's clear that Houston still has some room to grow. He's competing with the likes of Matthew Betts, but with Okwu and Nate Lynn stepping up, Houston will need to separate himself even more as we head deeper into training camp. Speaking of Nate Lynn, this guy turned some heads too. Entering the game later on, Lynn made an immediate impact, pulling off some impressive moves reminiscent of a young Dwight Freeney. He got pressure on the quarterback with a bull slip move and then followed it up with a spin move to clobber the QB for a near sack. He kept that momentum going throughout the game, consistently putting pressure on the Giants' offense. Lynn, like Okwu, might have just made it harder for the Lions to sneak him onto the practice squad if he doesn't secure a roster spot. We also saw Pat O'Connor, a recent re-signing, make the most of his return. Playing in Detroit's five-man front, O'Connor showed his hustle with some solid backside plays and even split a double team to stop a running back at the line of scrimmage. It's going to be tough to find him a roster spot given the depth we have, but O'Connor could be a valuable veteran presence on the practice squad. Finally, Mekhi Wingo had a night filled with reps. With David Bada going down early, Wingo got a ton of playing time. While he didn't light up the box score, he did show some promise with consistent effort, pushing the pocket, and making a few nice plays in the backfield. Wingo's still a work in progress, but he's got time to develop and grow into a more significant role. All in all, our defensive line gave us a lot to talk about. We did give up a few big runs, but considering the depth issues most teams face on the offensive line during the preseason, it's not too concerning. What's important is that several players stepped up, making a strong case for themselves as we head toward roster cutdown day. With 8 defensive front players inactive for this game, it's clear that the competition is heating up, and the coaches have some tough decisions ahead. I hope you're all hanging in there after that preseason opener against the New York Giants. Look, we all know that the final score in these games doesn't mean much, if anything at all. So, don't stress about the fact that we didn't come out on top in week 1. It was one of those messy games, played on a rainy New Jersey evening, and you could see the weather really affected the play on the field. It was sloppy at times, no doubt about it. But, as always, there were some bright spots, and that's what we're here to talk about. With most of our starters chilling on the sidelines in tracksuits, this was a golden opportunity for the guys further down the depth chart to make their mark. And boy, did some of them step up. If you're a true fan, you were probably watching closely, looking for those hidden gems, right? Well, I have to say, one player that caught my eye was running back Sione Vaki. Now, you've probably heard the buzz around this guy from his time at the University of Utah. He didn't get a ton of carries there, but when he did, he was a nightmare for defenders to bring down. Fast forward to the game against the Giants, and even in a small sample size, Vaki showed us why. Late in the first half, he had this one run that made me sit up and say, whoa. The way he made defenders miss in those tight spaces, it's not easy, folks. But Vaki did it with a kind of smoothness that you just can't teach. You could see that he's got that special something, a burst of energy, that juice as they say, that makes him a real threat with the ball in his hands. Now, I know it's early, and we don't want to jump to conclusions based on one preseason game, but what I saw from Vaki has me excited. We're going to have to wait and see how the rest of the preseason unfolds, but if Vaki keeps this up, he's going to make the coaches' decisions a lot harder in the coming weeks. So, what do you think, Lions fans? Was Vaki's run your favorite moment too, or did something else catch your eye? Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you all think.